Alright, I came out here yesterday to look at some crop fields. I think I saw like 13 deer in one field yesterday evening. But I didn't bring my good camera and I didn't bring my binoculars, so I know there's a couple bucks in there, but I couldn't really tell if there's anything decent because they were out a couple 100 yards out. Most of them were. Deer are already starting to come out. Right now I just saw 5 on the trail. They were headed to another field. And I pulled this camera from another spot and emptied the card, and I've got it with me now. I'm hoping to find out where most of these deer in this big field are coming out. These soybeans were planted a little bit late, which is good for bow season. The fields that are already getting tall now are going to be turning yellow by bow season, and the deer won't be hitting them as hard. But those lush green soybean fields that stay green into the first 2-3 weeks of bow season, those are the best. So late June, and they're still real short, which is perfect. Anyways, I'm about to pop into this field, so I'm going to be quiet. So I'm sitting here watching this doe that literally just came out into the field right as I was walking into the field. She still has no idea I'm here. And I heard a deer blow, and there's at least 3 more deer. One of them was a buck, and it just ran back. They all just ran back in the woods here. Well, this deer finally saw me, and when it started blowing, another deer poked out from behind some trees, and it's running off. What really got my attention was the 3 deers, however many deer were coming out behind this doe here. One of them was a buck that was at least out to his ears. It hadn't really started growing tines yet, but it looked like he had good potential to be a pretty nice buck. There is a gap somewhere up ahead that goes into another field, and I saw a big-bodied deer yesterday evening that had just come out of there. It was way too far for me to tell without binoculars, or at least this camera, to see if it was a buck, but it was a big deer. I'm gonna go down there and see if I can find me a good trail to put this camera on. If not, I'm gonna go back to where I actually saw that buck. There goes another deer. I think. Unless that was a squirrel or something. Something else just jumped and ran. Typical summertime soybean field, deer just coming out of the cracks from all angles. There's not one particular spot the deer are coming from. That's why I'm trying to zero in on a spot that's being used by bucks. And I know of one, at least this evening, I know of one that is being used by bucks because I saw a buck that might be a shooter. The only reason I'm putting the camera out is to see if I can get a picture of a shooter buck. I'm not trying to pattern the deer or anything, find a setup just yet. Season's still three months away, so I'm just trying to see if there's a good buck out here, which I think with the amount of deer out here, there's a good chance of a shooter buck being out here. I just like to get some pictures, so I got my $28 Walmart special. Alright, we're coming down into this secret field. We got a young buck standing in this field. He sees me now. I'm just kind of walking up slowly. We're gonna walk the edge of this, see if I can find any good trails or anything. So the deer could be bedded along the edge of this creek anywhere. They could just be bedded here. I mean, it's not season yet. Everything's green. Nobody's really coming back here bothering them, so they could just bed anywhere here. I think during season, people start coming in and scouting and hunting a little bit. That'll probably push them across the creek a lot more, and they may start hitting the field a little later in the evenings. We gotta cross somewhere now. A deer can find its way down this bank, but I'm looking for the easiest spot because they're always gonna gravitate towards that. And this looks like a pretty good little trail right here. And notice the creek is shallow here, and looks like there's probably somewhere they can get up across the creek. We're gonna look for fresh tracks in this little trail here, because if it doesn't have a lot of fresh tracks now, It's probably not being used much. A couple tracks, but it's definitely not worn out. Not at all. So I'm not going to put my camera here. Now that I remembered that we had a big storm roll in first thing this morning, tracks are not going to be the best way to tell where the deer are using, except for the tracks from right now. Because it rained pretty heavy, and there's some old deer droppings here, and there's a trail. You can see where deer have been cutting through the weeds here. Just barely. It's not very obvious, it's kind of subtle, but here's another good trail. Here's a good trail. Seen a lot of these good trails. Looks like this used to be maybe a four-wheeler trail or something. But regardless, the deer will use it. Alright, so y'all probably can't see it, but I've scouted here before in the wintertime, and there's a bluff up that way, and there's a bluff down that way, and then this low land in between is drainage, I guess. But notice it's kind of a good little stretch here, so it doesn't exactly neck the deer down into one spot, but this is just a general area that they probably cross frequently in multiple trails, multiple creek crossings, and then of course there's a bunch of trails up there coming up to the field. I could pick a trail and set my camera up here, but something's been in the back of my head this whole time, and that is where I saw that buck when I first walked into the field. He ran off with a couple other deer that I couldn't identify that were very possibly bucks as well. Coming back through the field where I just came through just a few minutes ago, there's 3 bucks out here now. And I didn't see them come out, but judging by the way they're all facing, they probably came out from this tree line here that I just walked by. If you remember a little earlier, I thought I heard something and said maybe it's a squirrel. It's probably those 3 bucks. And they probably just sat back there and watched me walk by. But I don't think any of them are the one I saw earlier. Okay, so the deer I was referring to, the buck that I barely saw, and the other 2 deer, or however many were with it, were coming out right through here. And then of course turned around and ran right back into here. We actually got a nice little clearing here. It's real thick in these woods, but it's just open enough here to set up a camera. Alright, so notice this fence here. It's not a very good fence, but it stops right here. The deer are definitely going to be coming through here. I think the fence starts again somewhere over there. It's thicker too. This is like pretty good spot. Like pretty obvious the deer are coming through here. Okay, so I think this tree here is probably going to be decent enough. I'd like to look that way, but this camera only has so wide of an angle. I think it's like 45 or 50 degree, or maybe a little wider, but it's not a very wide angle. So I'd like the left part of the picture to be here because we have a fence here, and they're not going to be going left of here on this side of the fence. So this is where they're kind of going to be funneling through, so I'd like it facing straight this way. Alright, so we got our camera set up here, facing about 45 degrees to the trail, which goes out this way. Actually splits, goes into the field 2 different ways. We got the fence here, it's pinching them down through here, so they can come anywhere through here and walk right in front of the camera. Sensor's working. And we're going to flip it on and start the countdown. And she's ready to roll. So we're going to head on out of here and try to look at some other fields, get eyes on some more deer before it gets dark. So let's go see if we can see any more bucks. That one's got some growing to do, but it looks like he's going to be outside his ears. Might be a shooter. That one that's bedded down. He's grown a lot for June. He's probably going to be a shooter. We got some other up-and-comers with him. A whole batch of group out there. There's one way over here. That one's going to be pretty good. Oh, there we go. That was our shooter right there. Well, nothing else to show this evening, but saw a few deer, a couple of potential shooters. Got one camera out, and I'll have to get the rest of my cameras rounded up here soon and find spots for those. So I'll catch y'all later. Also going to be getting back on the water here pretty soon. So if you like fishing, stay tuned for that.